Millions of households will receive a £299 payment from the government today. They don't have to claim for it, it'll just go into their accounts. It's the last instalment of their £900 cost of living support.
The Work and Pensions Secretary, Mel Stride, is in Westminster for us this morning. Good morning to you, Mel Stride.
Morning.
It is always good news in the middle of a devastating cost of living crisis for people that money will be given to them by the government. £299, the final payment. How frustrating for you that yesterday our Prime Minister said that he was willing to risk £1,000 on the basis of a bet. Did you think that that was an out-of-touch mistake?
Well, that's the first time I've seen it, Susanna. I'm glad you've shown it to me, because, it didn't exactly seem that he said, yes, I'll definitely take your bet, although he admittedly shook hands with him sort of tentatively at the end there. But look, what I see is a Prime Minister who is absolutely determined and gets the concerns of the British people around this issue of illegal migration, which is why we've been doing a whole raft of different things, a deal with Albania, closer cooperation with the French, a returns policy with various countries as well, which has seen reductions of some 34% in those illegal crossings.
Yes, but did he fall into a trap?
Well, I don't, I know this all makes great copy and great telly and all the rest of it, but Richard, with great respect, I think people are focused on what really matters here. And what matters here, as I say, is that we get these numbers down, not least because it's extraordinarily dangerous for those poor people that get swept up in this illegal trade. And we have seen a 34% reduction in boat crossings at the same time as Europe has seen increases, very significant increases.
OK, and the whole point of the bet was that, Piers was saying he doesn't think it's ever going to happen. That's why he placed the bet. I mean, what people think is that on a day when you are out to talk about a comparatively small amount of money, significant to those people who will receive it, £300, the Prime Minister, who is worth millions, thinks it's OK just to gamble with £1,000. He doesn't understand, does he, the value of the cost of living payment that you're announcing today? Because he can just shake hands on £1,000. It means nothing to him.
Oh, look, this is a little bit of a sort of flash-in-the-pan telly thing that's had some pick-up, and we all understand why.
It's the Prime Minister of this country,
Susanna,
Mr. Stride.
let me make the point. The PM is extremely clear that what matters is stopping the boats, getting those numbers down across the channel. Would you have
taken the bet? Would you have shook hands on that bet?
I'm not a gambling man, so if you ask me, am I going to gamble on the Grand National? I'd say no, because I just don't gamble.
Rishi Sunak says he's not a gambling man either.
Well,
but he shook hands
there you
on
go.
It.
There you go. We're at one on that point. But the thing that we really are at one on is the fact that we're absolutely determined through the legislation that we've already brought in last year, which means that if you arrive here illegally, you cannot claim asylum in this country. We've got the Rwanda bill that we've got through the Commons and is going through the House of Lords at the moment that Labour are opposing because they have absolutely no plan on any of this stuff, incidentally.
No, that's absolutely not true to say that Labour don't have a plan. They have a plan, which is to smash the gangs. I'm not a Labour Party spokesman, but I just think the audience needs to be aware that in the run-up to the general election, your line as ministers will every morning be Labour have not got a plan. And in this case, it's simply not true. You may not agree with their plan, and you might think there are holes in their plan, but it is not true, and I'm not allowing every government minister just to repeat Labour have not got a plan when they're not the person we're interviewing.
You just said that Labour's plan was to smash the gangs, or whatever you termed it. That's not a plan, that's an aspiration.
Mel Stride, you are not the Labour spokesperson, and the Labour spokesperson is not here, so I'm just not going to have you divert to what Labour are or aren't going to do.
I think people care about these things, Susanna,
My question for you, as Work and Pensions Secretary, was £1,000 in the middle of a cost of living crisis. Bet on a television programme where the Prime Minister of this country could quite easily have said, Piers, I know what you're playing at, but it would be inappropriate to gamble when we're talking about a cost of living crisis and people's lives.
So, as I've already said, I think this is a sideshow. I understand why it gets picked up and then lots of column inches in the press and so on and so forth. What the Prime Minister is very clear on is that the British people expect illegal migration to be dealt with. It is being dealt with. We need to go further. I can't come on your programme and not talk about the opposition because, I'm a politician and we're part of the political cut and thrust in Westminster. So that's the way these things work. Well, they can, and I'd like them to. Because as to whether they've got a plan or not, they need to tell us what it is.
Right.
And what you've just put forward is not a plan, I'm afraid. It's an aspiration, and that's very different. I have no idea what their plan is.
Can we move the conversation? Can we move the conversation on to the story of the morning, which is, of course, the diagnosis of the King's cancer? Now, we saw 1,000% uptake in men coming forward with worries about their prostate after he went public with his prostate condition last week. 1,000%. It's expected that there'll be a large number of extra people coming forward, men coming forward, worrying about cancer as a result of what we now know. Are you concerned about that? Because the NHS is creaking at the seams already. We know that the waiting lists for cancer treatment are exceeding what they should be. They're going well above 62 days, which is the absolute bare minimum required. Roughly half of people, men and women, with breast cancer, with stomach cancer, with lung cancer, are having to wait beyond that time period. This is going to make the pressure so much worse, isn't it?
Well, you are absolutely right that there will be more people coming forward. And one of the problems that we had, of course, during COVID was that people didn't come forward, which in turn is one of the reasons why there is this increasing pressure and the build-up of backlogs. We are making progress. The 2-year waits have largely gone, a 90-odd% reduction in the 18-month rates, but clearly a lot more to be done. But interestingly, in November, which was one of the months in a considerable period of time in which there hasn't been industrial action, the actual backlog shrank by almost 100,000 people. And I think what that demonstrates is that the underlying things that we're doing to address the pressures on the health service, that's a record number of staff in the health service, a record number amount of funding, an extra 6.6 billion on top of that actually this year and next year, diagnostic hubs in the community, various efficiency measures are moving us in the right direction. But for the fact that this industrial action, I'm afraid, is going to slow progress down very significantly. But there is definitely more to be done, and I accept that.
Briefly, we, the media, we, the public, do not know what type of cancer the King is suffering from. We know that he's had a number of telephone conversations with Rishi Sunak, with the Prime Minister. Does he know?
Well, all I know is that I've heard this morning that apparently it's been made known that the Prime Minister had a conversation with the King in which he said he was pleased that it was caught at an early stage. But other than that, I don't know what the prognosis is. I obviously am concerned, as millions of people are up and down the country, and our thoughts are with him, the Queen, and his family. But let's hope that this is something that can see him back and at his full duties as quickly as possible.
But briefly, do you think, as Prime Minister, he should know?
Well, I'm sure that the Prime Minister is being kept very closely informed as to the situation regarding the King, and it's right that happens. I'm not sure in those circumstances, in all cases, every single minute detail of somebody's medical situation needs to be shared, but I'm sure to the extent that information does need to be shared on the generality of his condition, I'm sure that information will be being provided to the Prime Minister. He'd be closely updated.
Mel Stride, thank you for your time this morning.